Yeah, I'll go as soon as Mark gets recording. Hello, my name is Ken Jones, and I'm one of the organisers of the 2021 Leadership for Professional Learning Symposium, and I'm chair of the editorial board of the journal Professional Development and Education, one of the partners organising this year's symposium. PDIE is more than a journal, and for a number of years we've been collaborating with universities and other organisations to run international symposia on themes related to leadership for professional learning. The focus of this year's event is leadership within technology-enhanced professional learning spaces. And we are carrying out short interviews with a number of authors whose articles have recently been published in PDIE. These interviews will be part of the resource space for the symposium, and recordings will be available generally for a limited period on the LFPL and journal websites. This interview, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Professor Howard Stevenson of the University of Nottingham, England, and Professor Aileen Kennedy of the University of Strathclyde, Scotland, two managing editors of Professional Development Education. Welcome both. Can you tell us a little bit about the journal and how the three key themes of the symposium, leadership, professional learning, and technology-enhanced professional learning spaces, align so closely with many of the articles published in the journal? Aileen?
Yes, thanks, Ken. I think these three big themes probably do come together to do something that we see as central to the journal, which is this twofold aim of meeting current needs in terms of the issues that are topical at the moment. So I think it's fair to say that leadership, professional learning, technology-enhanced learning in particular at the moment are issues that are pertinent to educators across the globe. So there's a currency in these issues. But I think also for us on the editorial board, they also come together to provide a conduit to push the journal forward, to bring these things together, to look at not only what's happening and to be able to report and theorise that, but actually to be able to use these themes to build theory, to understand better how we might push our understanding of professional learning forwards, which is certainly something that as a board we're really keen to do with the journal.
And if I would just follow on from that, Ken, as we were preparing for this discussion, I was thinking that the journal's existed now for nearly 50 years. I mean, it's a very long time. And when we think about professional learning, we think about learning in a sense for and about our work. And if one thinks about the way that work has changed in those 50 years, but the way at this moment that work is changing and likely to change at an accelerating pace, that focus on technology going to become so critical. So I think the journal's performed a really important role during that time of helping us understand developments in professional learning. And as Aileen said, to try to theorise them, because this is a field that I think suffers sometimes from us not thinking hard enough and theorising hard enough about trying to understand what is going on and why. And so, the journal's done a job over that time of trying to understand those developments, and particularly at this moment, which seems like a really sort of significant moment in history, in a sense. We've lived through this extraordinary pandemic, we're beginning to emerge from it, a sort of sense that this post-pandemic world might be significantly different in some way, but we're not sure quite how or why, and being well placed to understand how we help people navigate that, both through professional learning. What is the contribution of professional learning to help us have agency in this new world? I think is where the journal can make a really significant contribution to the future development of the field.
Thank you, Howard. I think that's really important. And one of the things we need to remember is that we're not speaking to a singular audience. That the journal's readership is international. And in those international contexts, there's a huge variety of approaches and ideologies and ways of defining professional learning. And we have to reach out across those international contexts. And secondly, your point there about looking back over nearly 50 years. And it is a time, because this is an opportunity, to look forward. Brings me on to the next point. At the last ECER conference, which non-virtual, which was held in Hamburg, the journal hosted a roundtable session, and that was designed to provoke discussion about the extent to which professional learning practices genuinely support formative learning. We called the session Beyond Reproduction, Formative Potential of Professional Learning. Can you tell us a little bit more about what we mean by transformative professional learning and why it's so important for leaders at all levels to understand the significance of this?
Okay, well, perhaps if I lead on this question in the first instance. So when we had that discussion in Hamburg, I think we were recognizing that we all have an interest in people who work in education, work in any professional field, having access to high quality professional learning and development. And we have an interest in trying to understand what works. That, in a sense, the holy grail of much of the research that we do, trying to find out what works. But there's a sort of recognition, I think, that there's a more fundamental set of questions sometimes which actually focus on what really matters. And I think what we were beginning to think about was that quite often when we think about professional learning and development, it is approached in a fundamentally quite instrumental way. It is about, how can we prepare people more effectively to deliver something that has been decided actually elsewhere? And then that actually those engaged in the professional learning and development then experience it as quite often something that comes from above with an outcome that they have no or very little control over. Because the agenda has been determined elsewhere, and professional learning and development almost becomes the vehicle to bring about the shift and the change in behaviours that the system is looking for. And when we began to think about the transformative potential of professional learning and development, it was about thinking more profoundly about the sorts of changes that we think are part of that objective and part of that process of professional learning. That the word transformation, I think, is used a lot in education because we think of education as a transformative process. But actually, I think at a rhetorical level, it's often used in a way where the expectations are really quite modest. There's a talk about transformation, whereas in reality, the language that we used in Hamburg was of reproduction. And so what we're trying to think about, I think, is, well, what does genuine transformational PLD mean? What are we talking about when we're talking about transformation? Is this about professional learning for transformation in a wider context, and what does that look like? Who does that involve? So in a sense, I think we're trying to sort of reclaim that radical potential and possibility in professional learning and development that is about empowering people to bring about change, without predetermining what the change is in the first instance. So that's just some initial reactions. Aileen will have her own thoughts as well, I'm sure. So I'll pass over to Aileen.
Thank you. So yeah, just to build on that, I think the idea that, of course, professional learning should be empowering, but obviously that's individuals hold different views around why we would be empowering. So to what ends? What is it we want to empower people to do in and through education? And I think what this particular focus does is allow us to surface these issues as being prerequisites for negotiation, discussion and understanding before we go on to do the stuff of the learning. And I think importantly for us, it's about understanding matters of hegemony and control that have just gone under the radar for so long and so very often do. And it's one thing to sit in a nice university space and to theorize how control works in learning, professional learning, school learning, or whatever. But I think it's another thing to understand how we can actually both theorize practice and practice theory in a living way, in a way that actually makes a difference. And it is a bold ambition, but I do think it's an ambition that this journal has. At the start, Ken, you spoke about the strapline for the journal, PDIE, more than a journal. And for me, that's the thing that drives us forward in maybe a unique way. I put that challenge out there, expecting other journal boards to come back and maybe argue with us. But this is about not just pushing the field of knowledge forward, but pushing practice forwards. And so for me, we would be successful as a journal if we were able to really produce excellent theoretical accounts of practice that allowed people to practice professional learning in ways that were more conscious of the power dimensions. And I think going back to the transformative idea, I really think that the current context where people have been forced to practice education in quite different ways to how we did pre-pandemic have actually put into sharp relief some of these traditional structures that we were perhaps not conscious of. So for example, thinking about the concept of leadership within technology enhanced professional learning, we actually, I think, have seen more easily something that certainly we in Scotland, and I don't think we're alone here, have been aspiring to, which is dispersed leadership, leadership for all. We want to see people at all levels of the system exercising leadership. And we have seen amazing examples of early career teachers in particular actually being able to, I don't know if it's break down some of these hierarchies, actually they just haven't been restricted by them because they haven't had to go through gatekeepers in the way that they might ordinarily have done. And even things like the amount of professional learning that you can access that's free is a big deal for us as a sector. But with that breaking down of barriers, the kind of total change in gatekeeping, I think comes some potential risks as well around how we ensure that the learning we engage in is appropriate, rigorous, reasonable. So basically skills of critical evaluation for me become even more important in a context where we have fewer restrictions and more access and fewer gatekeepers and more opportunities for genuine leadership at all levels. I should stop for breath there. I'm sorry, I got onto a little bit of a roll with that question.
I think
I think those are very...
Sorry, Ken, I was just going to say, I think it highlights the sort of sense that this is a moment, that the pandemic poses very big questions for us about what the future might look like, and who might have agency in that future. And of course, anybody involved in professional learning, anybody involved in adult education, we've learned a lot about how we can help people challenge assumptions, self-reflect about our role as people who can shape futures. And we need to, in a sense, bring that to bear as we chart these sort of, it's an uncertain path, isn't it? We will be co-constructing it. But I think what the transformation agenda in the journal, in its modest way, tries to do is to say we've all got a role in creating these futures. That actually what we want to challenge is sort of any sense that what the future looks like gets presented to us as a given, that the recreating is done elsewhere and we're not part of it. And I think that's what the transformation agenda in the journal speaks to, bringing together what it is that we're trying to do with the particular circumstances of the moment.
Thank you, Howard and Aileen. And I think that they're very powerful points, and we need to remember also that they will impact in different ways in different cultures. That not every culture enables teachers to have that agency that we're referring to. So we have that to bear in mind as well. So we're looking now, I think, at new models of professional learning that we need to ensure that education professionals are not just keeping up with learning, but are actually ahead of the curve. And how these technologies encourage professional dialogue, critical reflection, thoughtful communication, building communities. And if there are barriers, how these barriers can be removed. And lastly, how technology can serve to undermine that transformative vision of professional learning that you're referring to. I think we will be looking at publishing a special issue on the theme of transformative professional learning. So please keep an eye open for that. And for those of you who want to know more about professional development in education, you can see the link on this screen shortly. And please do look at the most recent 3 special issues that we published. The first one was on leadership for professional learning. That's volume 46, issue 4. Then this year we've had 2 special issues. The first of those, 47.1, was on the place of professional growth and professional learning in leading socially just schools. And more recently, a double special issue on non-linear perspectives on teacher development in professional learning and practice. Those 3 fit together very coherently and move us into the transformative situation that Howard and Aileen have just been referred to. Thank you both for that. And as I say, if you need to know more about professional development education, please link to our website and you can find our email addresses on there if you want to make further contact. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.